question for Menthos. Very inspiring. I've worked with disabled freedivers before. In fact, I developed one of the first adaptive freediving program, and the most inspiring and programs that I've ever done with abled and disabled people. Question is, when in disabled diving, sometimes the divers are required maybe to dive with an able-bodied person. Sometimes it's two able-bodied people. Some of them might be required to be a dive master. As an instructor or as an instructor trainer at your level, do you have things that are equivalent to that? Do you have able-bodied assistance, or are you able to teach on your own?
There are not standards yet, but as long as I think, as long as I teach, when a disabled diver has to go for technical diving, he has to be able to do things himself, like in a normal technical dive. So you dive maybe with a buddy, but you have to be able to be yourself in a case of being alone underwater and be able to get to the surface safely. So during the recreational diving, we may have different levels of divers, so that some disabled people are required, some disabled divers are required to dive with one buddy or two buddies because of safety reasons. Like if they stay alone, they need someone to bring them to the surface. Or if their buddy has a problem, then somebody else should help the buddy because they cannot assist their buddies. So in technical diving, this cannot be. So if someone as a disabled has to do a technical diving certification, for me, he has to be able to staff himself. So dive just with a buddy, but being also independent. I can hear.
Okay. Kudos again. Excellent presentation and very inspiring, as Kirk said. You mentioned a couple of times the risk of decompression illness. Now, starting from the fact that I, from a medical viewpoint, see no difference in the risk that an individual runs with decompression illness, be it an able body or a disabled body individual. Clearly, the disabled body has less reserve.
Mm-hmm.
And so there has to be more caution in respecting the body and its reserve. So are you adopting any special method to reduce the risk? Are you mitigating the risk? Is it part of the mental training of the future disabled divers, diving instructors, and so on, or not?
Yes, it is. It is, I think the biggest part is to prepare first mentally, then have your proper training, and then think about a lot about your body and have a know-how about your body. That we may have circulatory problems, we may have breathing problems that we don't know, and just start diving very conservative. I started going deeper very, very slowly in my career. Even with no decompression dives, I always did a lot of stops, and I tried to extend my safety stops as more as possible. And when I went to technical diving, I started like having only a couple of minutes of decompression, watch myself after that, and then slowly I developed to longer decompressions using, of course, different richer gases, and see how it goes. For sure, I did a lot of experiments, and I'm happy that I came after all my dives quite okay. Sometimes I felt a bit more tired, and then I thought, okay, let's be a little bit more conservative next time. So I end up using the last, I think, more than 10 years, the Bullman with GFs. And I start with a high GF like 80 and went down to 70 at this moment. And the low GF I use is between 30 and 40. So I feel like after all the dives I do with this profile, that for me it's okay, at least for the moment.
I think Powell will like what you said about numbers now, but there is a big debate about that. And obviously the Bullman GF-based program is one of the most used ones. You can apply similar conservatism levels with the Yount model, with the VPM, obviously. It's easy to go for low bubble profiles when you dive recreational, obviously.
Yeah.
When you dive technical, knowing what you're doing with the GFs or with the conservatism is a good thing. One thing that we are finding, besides the fact that we are now exploring the disabled diving universe by monitoring what's happening to their bodies and so on, because that has to teach us a lot of things. There is one thing that we are focusing on, and is the fact that most of the current models, both the bubble-based or the gradient-based models, actually stop computing when you leave the last deco stop. And by applying the same formula, we saw that if you're not careful in the last phase of the ascent, the supersaturation you achieve when surfacing is far from what you believed you had, according to the model. So that is another thing to be considered, in my opinion.
I really have a lot of consideration about it. I have seen that breathing oxygen the last part of the dive, it benefits a lot. And also I have said that the last part, as you said, from the last decompression to go out and maybe breathe some oxygen when I'm out of the water, it helps a lot. I usually use from 10 meters and up, like 3 to 4 meters per minute ascent rate, and I always stay longer for the last stop.
Hi, Manthos, over here.
Okay.
So you mentioned different types of being disabled, and you also mentioned blind people can dive. With most other disabilities, I could kind of imagine what that would look like, but with blind people, how does that work? And are there a lot of blind people that are interested? Because I can imagine that all of the senses that you have on land, if you can't see, that's very different underwater, I imagine.
Yeah, many people are thinking that diving is a visual activity, and everybody enjoy what we see. But when I start diving with disabled people, and I did myself the training with the black mask, the dark mask, I saw that you can start feeling more things than what you see. So later I dived with many people with visual problems. So I talked to them, and they explained me that they can really feel a lot of things, like hearing things that we don't learn how to hear it. And they feel stuff underwater that we don't feel. Of course, this is a part of recreational diving, let's say, because a blind guy, especially if they don't see a lot of stuff, they cannot do, of course, technical diving, but they can do recreational diving for sure.
In addition to that, can I speak also? when we do search and rescue, a lot of times we are in completely dark situation, and usually I'm talking for myself. Normally I close my eyes because the other the senses gets more feeling better. You know, it's sometimes I close my eyes when I'm doing search because I can see a knot. So if I have my eyes closed, I get more focus on the what I'm trying to find than if I stay with open eyes. You're welcome.
Okay, hi. I have a question for the civil protection.
Hello.
My name is Sami Paakanen. I'm from Finland. I work in the Finnish Coast Guard, and we train for a lot of similar accident scenarios that you were facing in 2018. And I work a lot with unaware sensors, and I was seeing a picture of you having an AUV on a site. And I was interested that were you able to use any kind of sensors to scan the bottom before you were diving there? So were side scans and AUVs any helpful in there? Because I would imagine that you have a limited size pool with lots of structures in the bottom, which could like prevent using those tools. And another question that the tool that I would like prefer to have on that kind of quarry would be multi-beam. So you would, from the surface, you would be able to 3D scan the bottom. So were you using those kind of technologies, and how did you find out the usefulness of those?
I will talk about our experience. Perhaps maybe it could be it not be very right or wrong. It's our perspective. Usually, we always prefer to dive with people and put some divers on the water because we have more feedback. Normally, usually our missions it's to find bodies, you know, and it's easier for us to do it in touch. It's better than using some different equipments. But if we are looking for vehicles or for something bigger, a lot of times help us more to have a sonar or to have a ROV or something to help us to find. But usually we like to dive and go and to have the feelings, and when we do that, we get more experience. And how much experience do you have, more easy it was for you for the next dives. And that's a kind of it don't have to be correct, but it's a kind of paradigm of mentality. We like to do it on your own or on our own. I don't know if it's clear for you. Yeah. Someday in the future, the machines will just.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Carlos. I work with robots. So my question is, you pointed on your presentation that you would like to have an ROV. Yeah, okay. So ROVs are mainly for open waters and not for confined spaces in disaster scenarios, because you have a lot of structures, cables, the visibility is very, very bad. So the ROV is mainly remotely controlled, and the operator must know very well where it is, because they usually don't have navigation. So you navigate through the visualization that you have from the ROV. And that kind of scenarios, do you think it would be useful to have an ROV with an umbilical cable? Or do you think it would be better to have a surface vehicle that could map the bottom with different sensors?
Thank you for the questions. I said two things. The first, we will like to have, of course, because all of us like to have something to, if we go for one mission and we don't have the support because it's not possible, we have the experience to use it, we are used to, we have the equipment, and we are self-sufficient. So this is for the future. But I also said, we know we need to work together, and there are some institutions that have more equipments and different equipment, and I know it's one of the perspectives, and nowadays it's how we work. When we need something, we ask you and you give us, and vice versa. But also it's very important for us, because we know the most scenarios that we used to dive, it's not applicable to that technology, but perhaps in the future, I'm sure we'll have some ROVs with some kind of technology that can visualize underwater in bad conditions, and this is it's very good for the first approach to know the risks and the problems underwater, as I told you. But after that, I don't know if it's a whole mentality, but I like to have the divers. I like to dive. I like to feel. I like to go. I like to do it for myself with a human value, not with the machine. The machine, it's good for prevent me the risks and give me more confidence and to go forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have another question for Marco. You've emphasized the importance of the diver and the skills and the mindset of the diver. So my question is, when you're recruiting people for your team, do you insist on someone who's already a diver, or would you take someone with the right mindset and teach them right from the beginning to become a diver?
Thank you. Personal, I prefer someone who don't have connections with dive, because when the people came, oh, I'm a good diver, I have more than 10,000 hours diving. Okay, you are so expert, let me see what you do. Sometimes they are very good, of course, but what is the problem here? It's the psychological part, the mentality. I like to shape that psychological profile to my team profile, to the rules, to the procedures that we use to our paradigms, to our values. And I think this is that's the most important part, because if I have someone that can hear me, that can do the things that I say to him, because sometimes when you get people with a lot of experience, they also have a lot of things they do on the past and a lot of heritage with them, and sometimes I don't like that. We choose the profile. What kind of persons do we want? We want that kind of persons, and sometimes we have different needs. I need a deep diver. I need a diver who can do searches in a very complex scenarios with a lot of things that with very agility. So we try to pick different kind of divers. It's the best of. But the answer directly to the question, I prefer people without experience and give them the formation, the values, all the things. I think it's better. It's the experience tell us it's better. For us, it's my opinion.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think it's easier to teach them the diving than to teach them the mindset. Thank you.
I have a question for Marco. Congrats for your job. I have actually two questions. One, do you plan blackened mask training as part of your normal training or not? And the second issue, have you ever experienced any post-traumatic stress problems, since you are obviously working with recovering bodies and so on? And so what's your attitude towards that?
Two very nice questions. First, it's not mine, it's my team. I have more guys over there and there are more, and it's how we do. So first question, normally we don't need to put a black mask. Only on the first beginning, when we have beginners or rookies, we do it in the black mask on the swimming pool to have the control of the environment. Usually where we training, you don't have visibility. You don't need to put the black mask. You don't see at all. So we train in that kind of scenarios. So we don't need what we do when we have people with less experience or we need to practice something very in particular. Yes, we put the black mask, and then let's try to do this before to go to remove your equipment and escape from a branch or for a space very, very small. We do this on the controlled environment in the pool, but usually our team works in the real environment, and it's you don't need the black mask because you will not see at all. And the second question is, sorry? Post-traumatic stress, of course. It's very important. It's a very important point. We have two ways to do it. When we see the people are not very leading with the good, because when you have a small group, we live like a family. If you came to the work and I see your face, I know if you are feeling good today or not. This closure, it's very, very important. And if I feel that, I will try to go with you sometimes, try to understand what's going on. If it's very, if I have the feeling that it's something very clinical, I recommend him to a psychological assistance or something to help him. But I will tell you the truth. Usually we do that, you know, when? After dinner, when we go to the bar after the mission and we drink some beers or a wine and we talk, we laugh, we cry, we hug each other. That's the best part. And usually inside of our team, inside of our crew, we speak, we talk with each other because we understand the feelings of each one. When I have some element that cannot speak, that cannot, in that case, I will have more attention and say, okay, this is special. We need something at high level. They need to go to the psychologist or something to have more support. Usually we do like that. You're welcome.
Another question over here for Marco. And I'm not a plant, if anyone's thinking that of asking questions. Lee Bishop from England. I've spent over 30 years now in the British Fire Service as a professional firefighter. I've spent the last 5 years training firefighters in all aspects of rescue. And our priority is the safety of our personnel. My question to you was signs or further collapse in that quarry considered? Because I couldn't help noticing a lot of people looking over the edge as such. And was the safety of the divers your priority as well? Do you understand what I mean?
Can you explain a little bit?
Okay, so was further collapse in the quarry considered before you put divers in there?
What the first? If we have, we do not get in on the water before the experts from the engineer laboratory said you can go.
Brilliant.
This is why we just dove on the 4th day. We have the feeling when we arrive, it's very normal. We have the adrenaline, we have because we want to find someone alive. We want for like a miracle. If someone is on the air bubble on the bottom, they could have, but our first dive was on the 4th day.
Yeah.
We know exactly what we are looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
We are not looking for lives. We are
Yeah.
looking for recover the bodies for the families to have the last moment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I saw when you were showing the video with the tank on the back, swimming in that frame. Are you using also front-mounted breathing apparatus for shallow water diving, like oxygen rebreathers or something like that, in certain conditions or not? Or are you afraid of sharp objects and?
Yes, usually we don't use it. We have afraid to, because that kind of environment, it's very specific and it's very, you cannot visualize anything and it's easier to get trapped on something. And we try to have the less gear as possible when we go dive in this kind of environment, because it's how more flexibility you have and more less things you have to can trap on something on your own cable, on whatever. We usually go to the dams also, the bottom of the dams, and there's a lot of trees and a lot of things. We are used to work in that kind of work sites.
Please, Mario. For Marco, do you see in the future using freediving or technical freediving, as Kirk was explaining in your activities?
Yes, I think I saw the presentation and I like it so much because you know that for me, I thought for myself, this is a gold point for us because as I talk, our psychologist, our state of psychological, it's very important. And if you have a good breath hold, you feel so much confident than if you don't have it. And that kind of self-confidence, it's so huge, it's so important for all of us to can be more concentrated when we are doing search, to if something go wrong, to have the cold blood to react and not explode or get panic. That kind is so important. Also, I have one passion. I will talk with you about that. I also do surf, and I like to go to not for the big waves, but I like to catch some good big waves, and not like 30 meters. I'm talking about 2-3 meters. But sometimes when you do that, when you can hold your breath for a long time, you feel so much confident. And it's important in surf. It's important when you dive. It's important in all the activities that you do when you are underwater or near the water, because unfortunately we cannot breathe underwater. So if we have a very good capacity to hold our breath, we feel so much confident and we can really do a better job.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
You're welcome.
Marco. Thank you very much. Manthos, incredible presentation.